All right. Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing? It is welcome to another edition of Thursday Night with Pineapples. This is Mr. Terrence Ramses. I'm out here in Tampa, Florida, doing some great things. Listen, it's been a long week. It's been raining, it's been hot, and it's been raining. And we just had Juneteenth. Happy belated Juneteenth to everybody. So there was a lot going on this week as far as events and everything else like that. So it's been a lot of different things. So on this issue, this episode is going to be something a little different. So Father's Day, we have an attorney on the line. So we're going to be talking about fatherhood, business law, and a few different topics. So let me tell you a little bit about this attorney. Let me tell you. So she is based in St. Pete. She does a lot of different laws. Okay, so let me go ahead and get my pad. Let me see. Let me go get my book. Hold on. I got a book that shows you what laws she practiced. Okay, so she practiced. I had to write it down. She practiced so much law. Okay, so she got business law, church law, a pedestrian law, apostle law, family law, father's law, church law. Let's see what else she got. Citizens law, children's law, all kinds of law. So what happened was she was supposed to be in Hyde Park, so they didn't want to come by because she was gonna shut all these businesses down because she that good. Okay, she that good of an attorney. She got all areas covered, so they prevented her from coming on this side of the bridge. So she had to stay over there in St. Pete. So I'm just letting you know, she is a good attorney. She does her job. She knows what she's doing. I want to bring on Miss Attorney Karmika Rubin. Let me go ahead and bring her on here. What's up, lady?
Hello. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you
Absolutely.
for the good intro.
Oh, absolutely. Yo, you do a lot of law in your car. You got so much law in your car, I had to write it down.
Yes. I joke and I say, people, my clients, they make me do those areas of law.
Look, hey, we need you, you know. You look like you're very passionate about what you do.
I am. Years ago when I opened up my practice, I thought it was going to be just a couple of different areas. But then the more I got into it, I realized that a lot of laws and a lot of needs of the people overlapped. And so my passion for people, my passion for law, it also overlaps. So I definitely enjoy what I do.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you from and how long you been practicing law.
Okay, well, I'll start off. I know you said I have a lot of different practice areas. I will say that I do have 7 different degrees. And I was born in St. Pete, raised in Buffalo, came back here on a mission. And my law practice is here in St. Pete. I've been in law for about 20, maybe 24, 26 years. And I've had my law firm since 2010.
Okay. Okay. So what inspired you to really get your law process? What made you decide that you wanted to be an attorney?
The funny story is, when you're kids, you enjoy dreaming and fantasizing about what you're going to be when you grow up. And so I thought, either a teacher or an attorney, but I figured in Buffalo, I'm like, attorneys make more. So that was my initial drive. But little did I know that once I actually got into the passion of it, that I would be hooked. And that would be my goal in life, is to help people. I get paid to read. I get paid to help people understand. I get paid to give people peace at night. I'm not God, but I do like to help my clients just understand the process. If you're a mechanic, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's what you do. But when people come to me, I like to tell them about the process, whether they want to be hands-on their matter or not. But I like to kind of walk them through it. So yeah. And you see a little injustice every now and again, and you're like, you know what? I don't like that. I don't like that. So my portion to the community is to get in and to kind of represent what the legal needs of the community are.
Oh, that's real good. That's real good. That's a lot of that's a big why, and that's a lot of passionate about what you're doing, and I think a lot of people don't realize what you're doing. You know, the stuff that you create, and and a lot of people think lawyers are just lawyers, and some lawyers are really in it for the people. Some of them are just in it for the money, or they don't got no integrity. But I feel like that you are one of those lawyers that really truly care about the people, the community, and you're upfront with people. You're amazing. You're flexible, and you're just be honest with your clients too.
I found it interesting that, not every attorney is the same. Not every consultation with attorneys are the same. When a person is trying to seek who should represent them, they should really like that person's personality, because you're going to spend a lot of time together. You're going to be happy. You may be mad. You may be disappointed, but that's like a partner. You're partnering up with your attorney to kind of walk through this legal process. And not every attorney loves to teach. Not every attorney has patience. And, when I talk to my clients, I say, hey, you have the passion. No, you have the emotions. I have the passion. So you can go into court, you can have all your emotions, but one of us, one of us got to be focused on the mission. So I got to say, if you want to say whatever, but I got to kind of keep us and guide us on why we're there, and also how the law is applied to why we are there.
Right, right. Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you talk about going into the courtroom, do you feel stressed after dealing with like cases? I know what are your before we get to that question, what areas of practice do you study?
I like to say I help families. I like to say I help families with their business needs, their real estate needs, their family needs, whether they want to stay together or they don't want to stay together, their child custody and support needs, and also a little bit of their estate planning when it's time to leave. And what I've realized is that, and I said it earlier about how things overlap, there's a lot of us who have businesses but also have family needs. There are a lot of us who have divorce, they're going through a divorce, but now their home is in foreclosure, whether it's because of a mortgage or them failing to do their HOA payments. And that, I'm not going to say forces me, but it does bring me into various practice areas, because it's like I want to be, they used to call it general attorneys or general counsels, but I want to be there for my client if I'm able to do that.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. That's very key. And as I sit there and think about that, um when I've done different cases and stuff, like when I've done interviews with different attorneys, like back 10 years ago, some attorneys is just y'all just it's just apples and oranges just don't mix because their personalities is different, their billing system is different, their just the way they go about things is just different. It's just like their personality is really dry. You mess around might lose the case if you hire them. I ain't gonna
Yeah.
lie. Gotta make sure that's a good point that you bring up, that you gotta have chemistry with the person that you're doing business with, because you also is a collaboration and a partnership. I never thought about it like that, but that's a good point that you brought up too when it
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah. The other thing I will add to it is, and I don't share this portion frequently, I do share with my staff members that the law firm to me is a ministry. You know what I mean? It is a business. You do have to pay. Is a business, but I also look at it as a ministry in the sense of people come because there's something going on. They come because they're hurting. So you don't come to me to hear my issues, my problems, and all of that good kind of stuff. You come to say, I need your assistance so I can sleep better at night. And I was completely surprised when I've read emails of former attorneys for certain clients where they're fussing, they're cussing, I'm like, there's no way this email came from an attorney. I'm like, no way. But relationship is everything. And I look at it also as a ministry.
Got you, got you. Now, what when you say a ministry, what makes you treat it like a ministry? Most lawyers, most attorneys don't say this. Now, they look, you gotta pay me my money.
And that is true. That is true. That is true. That is true. You mentioned a question a couple of moments ago about stress. And I think every scenario definitely has a certain level of stress. And every case you do have stress. And it's a matter of what do you do? How do you handle it? So I have little things that I do to kind of relieve the stress while I'm there or right before I get there. And I don't, I mean, I read a scripture, I write certain things on my pad just to make sure I'm focused on what I need to focus on, to kind of reduce that amount of stress. But I call it a ministry because I pray. I pray about my clients. I pray about what I'm doing. And there's been cases, and I'll tell you, that didn't go the way my client wanted them to go, and they were not happy. But they came years later and they said, I'm so glad I didn't get what I wanted because I really wasn't ready.
Gotcha.
And sometimes delay, and you got to have patience with your attorney, and sometimes every delay doesn't mean a denial. You really may not be ready for what you're going to court for. And in family law, they don't allow us to say win or lose because it should be about the children, what is in the best interest of the child. So when you go to court, I am representing your needs. I'm representing your experiences. I'm representing, how the judge should look at your case, because the judge doesn't know you. The judge doesn't know the other person. They're not walking the streets with you. So I'm very conscious about representing your needs in the court, but also looking at you as a person, not just a dollar sign, but looking at you as an overall person, not just a client on a sheet of paper. I'm not saying that, I get it right all the time, but most of the times, most of the times I'm just like, okay, God, are you pleased with me? But I truly enjoy my why behind me having the law firm.
That's good stuff because a lot of like again a lot of people that especially in family law, a lot of
Mm.
them they ain't look, they trying to get paid. They don't. Some lawyers really just don't care about your situation, and and you don't want them to come in your situation to make it worse, make it better. It's the mentality. Everybody mentality is different because of their personality, the way they were raised, depending on what kind of cases they've taken on, depending
Oh
on
yeah.
our background. It's so many different things that goes behind that, and I mean, very few attorneys that are really in it for the right reasons. I rarely meet too many attorneys that's in this sector that's in it for the people. I may have met one or two judges that was in it for the same reasons because a lot of family law
Mm,
make the blood pressure go up
mm,
expeditionally, and it'll make you really stressed. So that's why one of them questions I had asked you, because to be honest with you, when you sit up in a courtroom, like if you ever just sat down, like audience, if you ever sat into a child support office, uh, a child support court, that meaning the general magistrate, or you sit into a paternity case, you sit in there for about a couple of hours and just spectate, just don't say nothing, you just listen to other people's cases. Boy, you be feeling like that's happening to you, but it's not happening to you because it's just like it's one of those courtrooms where things are happening unorthodox. They're not really concerned about the children. It's always in the best interest of what is going to happen in the court, and it's about the money component about it. Because the funny thing about it is, when you could chime in after I say this part, they separated family law, family no not family law, paternity and child support, so they were one entity, but then they separated them, so now they're two separate issues. So you'll be going, so let's say if you file for custody, you have to go to another courtroom to file for child support, which doesn't make sense because it's the same thing. It's a money thing, so it's really not in the best interest of the children because of the way they have that system set up.
Okay, so you want me to chime in. So one of the things that I do is the truth about child support for fathers only. And in that, I share what I'm about to share now in regards to exactly what you're talking about, which is in circuit court, which is the family law court, the judge can do everything, and they still can establish child support there. However, there is an administrative portion of it that only deals with the child support. It's there to the Department of Revenue comes in to create, establish, enforce, modify child support. They don't, you're so on it. They do not deal directly with establishing a timeshare. Like, what are you going to do on the weekends, the weekdays? What kind of timeshare? Their whole focus administratively is to look at the formula, and whatever timeshare mom and dad agree to, that's going to be what they put on there. If mom says you're there every other weekend and you know you're there 50-50, if you don't have sufficient evidence to prove that 50-50, they're going to go with, well, you both at least agreed to every other weekend. So that's going to be the overnights that we use to put into the formula to create and establish child support. That's administrative. But if you're like, but I'm telling you, this is da da da. I have to pay, but I also want to see my child. Well, you now have to go to circuit court. And then the circuit court is where the timeshare parenting plan will be established there. And can you start in circuit court? You can start in circuit court, but the majority of the people, mothers or someone who's receiving state assistance, they are going to start with the administrative portion of it. And I'll tell parents, because it's not just dads, it's mainly dads, but it's not just dads. The non-custodial parent, whoever is seeking to receive child support compensation or child support payments, uh, they file, but whoever the obligor is has 20 days. You can take it out of administrative law and put it in the circuit and say, if we're going to talk money, let's talk money and me seeing my child.
That's a good point because when I did that, like it was like over a decade, long, long time. So it's funny, like before that, I did that, and it was a clash.
Mm.
She's the administrative order and the judicial. It was a clash. So the problem is they couldn't locate where she was at, so that was the issue. So they wanted to proceed anyway. So they just so that lawyer that for the state, because I had my black book and everything. So they was about to almost lost his license behind that because you're not supposed to go around the circuit judge, who's the general magistrate, only supposed to relieve the pressure off of the circuit judge. That's their only purpose to do that. And a lot of guys don't realize they go into these courtrooms unprepared and they don't have their documents in order. They don't have their witnesses. They don't have none of that stuff. So I've seen dudes get child support. First time, getting in there with a lawyer. Now, what proof do you have that he ain't taking care of this? Do you have any items out? No, dismiss. They just dismiss it. I'm like, they dismissed that. And the lady, the woman over there looking dumbfounded because he had an attorney at that time. So the best thing when guys they lose so many of them cases because when they do go to child support, they don't have the proper legal representation or they don't have their documents in order. So it's the best thing always as a dad in that situation. You want to actually be 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead of her so she don't, put you in a position where it compromises your livelihood and everything. Not saying that you don't take care of your kids, but I've seen dudes get in real compromising position to where they start calculating these weird numbers when you don't know where they're getting them from. Then on top of that, they do amazing stuff. My other attorney, you've talked to my other attorney, he said they do some amazing when they was in that court. I was like, where you getting these numbers from? What evidence do you have to substantiate this? And then on top of that, what another crazy thing is, they can go, depending on how old the child is, they can go back and retroactive like 3, 4, 5 years. I'm like, and it throws you off, and I'm like, how do you calculate these numbers based off of what she said? All she's doing is accusing you. She really doesn't have the documentation. Most of the time, when I've seen spectated and in both courtrooms, I haven't seen any evidence of these women saying that they got taking their kids, because they all got the same story. He was abusive. He wasn't taking care of his kids. He don't send me no money. But you hear his side of the story. It's not her story. Don't even add up to what he said. He got all the receipts and all that stuff, and they still try to throw him in a bad compromising position because he doesn't have the proper legal representation.
I definitely want to chime in and say that, and thank you for that great example. There's a couple things that is very important and key is knowing the law. And if you don't know the law, definitely seek an attorney. If you don't want to pay all of the fees, at least do a consultation. At least go and seek a consultation if you're going to represent yourself, to understand how the process works, to understand where they're getting the numbers from, to understand what the formula is on calculating child support. And then you hit on a word called retro. And retro support is basically when the data, let's say the data filing is April 1, 2024. Well, the Florida statute allows you to go back up to 24 months prior to the date of filing. So it's 2 years back. So it's 2 years plus. April, May, June, whenever you get the actual date that child support is established. So if your case has been open for 3 years and you've never established any type of temporary child support, and I'm talking circuit at this point, because the administrative is a little bit faster. So if
Oh,
you're
they real fast in that court.
they're real fast and administrative. So
They
if
are 7 day turnaround time. They fast over there. They real fast over there. They fast. They
they're
too
fast.
fast.
And if you don't read the documents that they send to you, then they can be even faster, because they're telling you they have to send you a proposed final administrative order, and they tell you you have so many days to either agree or not agree. And if you don't do any of these steps, then we're going to make this order final. And some fathers are like, you know what, whatever, make it final. And then they realize, wait a minute, what did I do? Wait a minute, what? I didn't really agree. But in those administrative hearings, you do have the opportunity to challenge the numbers, to challenge, like you mentioned, the evidence or the lack thereof. You do have that. What I tell, when I would do my seminars for the fathers, I would say, whatever you give that's for the child, notate that it is for the support of the child. If it's through Cash App, Zelle, whatever form it is, just make sure you document it. So when you are going and they're going back 24 months prior to the date of filing, you can get credit for those particular receipts or payments. But if you don't have it, you're not going to get credit for those. Why are you shaking your head?
Because it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had an NBA player. So to speak on that, so there's an NBA player named Eddie Curry. I don't know if you know who he is.
Mm-mm.
So he used to play for a few different teams, but he was based with the Knicks. Okay, so his child's mother had he had, over the course of 18 years, he had gave his child's mother $1.5 million. Okay, so she wanted to be real spiteful. So she went to court, never put that man on child support, went to court, put him on child support. So he had to pay that 1.5 million again. He said, "Look, here's the receipts, everything I've been saying." Oh, that was a gift.
Mm.
I said, "It's a gift." What do you mean it's a gift? You just sending her money just to be sending her money? You got a job with her. That don't make sense. But the funny thing about that is, the women who do stuff like that, they never seem to can get ahead when they lie like that. You know that man was taking care of his kid. You know he was there. He provided all the provisions and all this other stuff. You just wanted to sit there and milk the system because you know the system is biased against men. You know that he was gonna get your way. You just was just bitter in that situation. He came out like maybe 2 3 years ago, said that he was on a live interview. I think it was on Vlad TV. He said, "Yeah, I had to go back to church. She took me to court." And I'm like, I just gave you over $1 million for this child, and you just gonna take me and go and take another $1 million. Now, mind you, that means she was using the money for her lifestyle, so the money didn't really go to the child.
Mm. So I don't know much about that particular case or what state it was in. I will say that it is very important to document that is for support. And then you also you also made a statement about his scenario that the system was very biased against men. And I'm just going to say that that was very intentional at one point in law. And the reason why it was very intentional to be biased against men is you got to go back to this, to our country's history, how women were not able to work as much. The man was to provide, a woman was to stay home. Although, we know that things have definitely changed, but the laws hadn't changed. And there's a whole lot of laws on the books right now that they may not enforce, but it's still there. And it's like, well, that was back in 18, blah, 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 or 1920, whatever, whatever. So there are laws that were geared to be favorable to the woman because of the society's limitations on her ability to earn, and then to earn at the same capacity that men were earning. With that said, the laws are catching up. And the laws are catching up in the sense that men can now receive spousal support. Men can now receive child support. It's catching up now that just last year, there was a law implemented July 1st, 2023, where the whole 50-50 is now where you start. That's the presumption. You start there. If you're not when you're married, you start there because the court believes you're a family, you're a unit, you both are there for the child. However, if the child was born out of wedlock, then before last year, the man really had to go to court and really, really fight to enforce his natural rights. He really did have to go and fight. Um, so it was intentional, and there has been changes, and there are still changes to try to bring it up to where we are in society.
Mm, mm. It's funny. The funny thing is, there's a lot of that. That is true. I will say this about that too. Them laws are far behind. They real far behind, and they're not current. A lot of these laws, just across the board,
Hmm.
but in family law, they're really, really far behind. I'm talking about these things is from the 90s and 80s. I'm like, see what I've learned. See how I started reading the laws. I say revised in 2000. Oh, so y'all didn't update these laws. So you just reworded these things that make it seem like you changed it, but you did not. So it's like when you go to school, right? You go to college and you got a third edition and a fourth edition. The fourth edition just cost money. They just updated the pictures, and then they just reworded it a little bit, or changed the chapters. That's all they did with the Florida statutes. They ain't update them laws. Them laws are old. Them laws are Stone Age, because all the stuff that happens in family law court, child support court, don't even apply today. And then when you give them certain scenarios to where it's supposed to apply, the judges is sitting there looking. They sitting there with their hands up. I'm like, ma'am, how many times did this situation happen in your courtroom? This situation happened 3 consecutive times, and you cannot make a accurate ruling based off these old laws. You see these women out here not taking care of their kids, and they gatekeeping kids, and they're not supposed to, and you're not enforcing it. But you're enforcing the child support on that man. You would throw him in jail. You'll throw him in jail, suspend his license, take his passport the moment he missed one payment. But when it comes to the other side, y'all ain't, what I'm saying, it's behind. But it was just true when you say our stuff is starting to catch up, because the women are not liking that alimony. They gotta pay alimony now. They hot. Oh, they mad about that. They mad. They mad. Look, Florida got a new law to where they took away permanent alimony. Okay, so now things are starting to also catch up. So in the state of Tennessee, they passed a law this year, okay, where DNA test is mandatory. So all the paternity fraud, that oh no, they locking them up now. You can't sit there and lie and pin babies on people without that. And they need to be. We hoping that all the states follow suit when it comes to that, because there be so many cases where women be lying about paternity. It's so many cases across the board from all generations. Kirk Franklin just had this situation happen to him recently. I don't know if you heard about it, but his mama lied to him. So his father was right down the street. So he was resenting a man that was never even his father in the beginning. So when they talked and when he got the DNA test, he presented his mama. His mama's still lying. His mama's 72 years old. She's still lying about the situation. And what's crazy about that, when you talk to them people that work in those labs, like those paternity labs, they say at least 40% of the men are not, those are not the father. I'm like, oh, and you present this to the court, they sitting there looking confused. I'm like, she just lied about this. She done hurt so many people. She took money out of my pocket and they act like they don't want to reimburse you.
Yeah. Well, it's so you have just hit on a number of points.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm passionate about this stuff.
but they're all great points. The first thing I would say is that it is very common. I shouldn't say common. It's very unfortunate that the paternity may not be as the mom stated it originally. I've had fathers who I've told, "Hey, get a test," and some moms were offended. I said, "Well, when women are pregnant, we still take a pregnancy test." I said, "There shouldn't be any offense. You just want to know. You could be 6 months pregnant with a baby kicking in your belly, and the first thing the hospital is going to do is give you a pregnancy test." I said, "So it should be okay to ask for a DNA test." Now, I would state, because I'm here as an attorney, is that if you do a home test, that may not be admissible as scientific evidence. So the court has to administrate scientific testing. However, it does play a role if you're trying to disestablish paternity. If you can be the legal father and not the biological father. And once you sign that birth certificate,
Ooh,
6 months. Oh, no. I think it's, oh gosh. I think
take
it's
it down.
I want to say it's 2 months. It's in the statute. You guys Google, check it out. But you have a very short window after you sign that birth certificate and to say, okay, am I the daddy? Am I not the daddy? Because that birth certificate says you are the legal father, not the biological father of that child. And you mentioned something about, Kirk Franklin's mom years ago, and not to say that it doesn't happen as much now. I think we're a more transparent society. But years ago, if the guy was going to walk away so that the woman won't be in shame, someone else would step up and be that legal father, although they're not the biological father, so that the woman won't walk in that type of shame of not having the dad around. So you hit on a number of different points, but the thing is, know your legal options, know what you can and cannot do, and when you don't know, just go to an attorney, get a consultation. You talk about her spending habits or you not seeing your child, you can go and fight in circuit court to hold a parent accountable for what they should be doing or should be allowing you to do as that parent. So you just have to fight. And if
Yeah,
you don't know how to fight, seek legal counsel.
that's good stuff. See, you taught me something I didn't know. I didn't know you could go and take some white out in 2 months and white your name out of there. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? I did not know that. That is information. They will not tell you nothing like that. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got, depending on, is that a federal law or is that state law?
State law. It's in the state statute, because before they changed the law last year, when and I'll just say I didn't always want to do family law because I felt family law was too emotional, and I felt it's emotional, and then you have to definitely try to get the payment because it can rack up because it's emotional. I had my first family law case. I thought. I'm not saying I was tricked into it, but I got into it believing it's going to be really quick. It's just a contract. We're working on a parenting plan. 3 years later, and a 2-day trial over will he keep the child on this night or not? And I'm like, OMG, this is crazy. So, but family law is very, very emotional. So what happens, when you're going through the legal process, the and I will always say, well, if he signed the birth certificate, he should have his 100%, like she has her 100% automatically. And I will go to court and they're like, I said, well, why do we have to do a petition to determine paternity if his name is already on the birth certificate? And I didn't really get, good replies from the judges outside of, well, this is just how it is. And I'm like, so someone must have heard me in the atmosphere and they took it to legislation. And now we have a law that does give the father who has already declared himself the father through a birth certificate or it's another form that you can complete, that you can now say, I'm here to enforce my right to, timeshare. And as far as timeshare starts now, 50-50. And if you're like, I don't think he deserves 50-50, there's a high bar. You have to really show where he's a drunk or he's violent. There's a lot you have to do to overcome him not getting that 50-50 at this point. It wasn't always like that. And we're just saying this just happened.
That's good stuff. Oh wow. So you dropping that's some knowledge right there. There's a lot of stuff about this is my field, but there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know. You teaching me things that when I talk to other dads and stuff, I tell them about these different scenarios, this process. But that stuff is just another layer.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. That is very interesting. You know what they should do when they do that now? When they start doing them DNA tests to establish paternity, they establish paternity at that hospital. Now, if that woman is lying about that, there needs to be some consequences to that. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, because that affects so many people.
Yeah.
Just about her feeling some type of way about him. It's about that child first. It's about that child and his child's identity first. Where does that child come from? His lineage. The second thing is all the relatives around you, both mother's side, father's side, and the community and the court time. All that she lied, all this process, all that money that has cost so many people, that's costed a lot of people, and it's pain and suffering from so many people, and it needs to be consequences, and they starting to do it because it's becoming too common of a situation to where there'll be guys that be finding out 4 or 5 years later that they not the father, but then they still like they got emotional attachment. Then they be like they got mixed feelings down. Now I got abandoned that child. I gotta go put her out, or the state will make them still pay child support. I'm like, wait a minute. I got a test that said that I ain't. You still gonna try to make me pay? You need to be giving my money back, and you need to throw her under the jail, and she need to be beheaded where she at. I'm being honest with you, because that's got to be the most wicked thing a woman could do. Lie about who that daddy is of their child. That's got to be the most wicked thing that you can do, because the guy that you wanted to be with, wanted to be father, abandoned you, so you pin it on somebody that's responsible. That is terrible. That's poor judgment of character. And you not only hurt the child, you hurt all those people around you that love that child unconditionally. You already messed up the child support system. Now, where does that leave the child?
It's a real issue that really happens. And I'm not saying, that particular fact pattern is the only fact pattern, because there's some that are innocent, like that you don't know, and then there are some men who are gentlemen who will say, like if a woman is transparent, they may go along with it, knowing they both may go along with it. You know what I mean? And I've seen all scenarios. I've seen the scenario that you're talking about. I've seen scenarios where it was like, well, I thought you were, and the scenarios where people, do you know that now in those questionable scenarios with technology, I don't know if it's 12 weeks or 9 weeks, but there is a process that the woman can be tested early in her pregnancy to determine who the father is. So you don't have to wait until birth to find out who
Yep.
the biological father is. And I think it's maybe under 1,000 or something like that. So there is a test. If a woman comes and she says, well, I'm not really sure because we were off, we were not on, so I wasn't cheating on you or whatever, because some people may have been raped, who knows. So whatever the scenario is, if there's a question of paternity, it can be done during the pregnancy to avoid everything that you're talking about. So I don't try to get into people's mind space, because people do stuff and you just don't know who's in their ear. You don't know their motive. It could be financial, it could be emotional. All I know is that there are ways that you can, with full transparency, correct certain things so that the child is not harmed, but with false paternity facts.
It's good. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. That is good. That's some good stuff. I mean, again, you taught me something. I didn't know that you can get paternity tests that early on in the game. That's a good point, and a lot of men need to know that, to where that way it just diffuses any type of chaos that may have in the future. So yeah, that's good stuff. And I think another thing is too, where a lot of people, they get offended by those paternity tests. That means they got something to hide. If he feels that way, let's say if a man does feel that way, okay, I give you paternity test, okay, cool. But if she start moving funny, dismissive, and I'm like, okay, so you got something to hide. So what you got to hide? Like, I want to make sure that you are sleeping around, because a lot of women today, they be sleeping around a lot, and then you don't know. Because this is what but people that work at paternity labs say. They say 4 out of 10, not the father. That's high percentage. That's high. In that type of scenario, that's almost half. Half them dudes ain't even the father. And that, like, that's crazy. That's why men typically do that. Typically, ask for the paternity test. But let me go ahead and ask you a couple more
Mhm.
questions. What do you think about like the federal laws? Do you think federal laws can overturn state laws in these type of cases?
Federal law is very interesting because they're looking at the nation as a whole, and they typically want to set a particular rule to kind of unify what the individual states are. So before we can get to the federal, we have to understand that every law has its own set of rules. If you look at a lot of the things that are going on now regarding whether it's abortion or women's rights, whatever, every state dictates what can occur within their state. The federal can set an overall rule, but the only way a federal law can really enforce certain aspects, they control you with the money. Well, we're going to give the state money to do blah, blah, blah. And because we're giving you money, we're going to control you this way. But mainly, they allow the individual states to handle the state affairs. In the family law, they actually have different acts, ACTS, like they have the UCCJEA, Uniform Child Custody Jurisdictional Enforcement Act. That's so that you can't go from state to state with that child. There's and also in it's like who is the home state to that child. So when you have a child in, let's say, New York, unless that child is there for emergency domestic violence, New York does not have jurisdiction to create or establish child support unless that child has been there for 6 months. So now you guys say, no, you got to come back to Florida because this is where the child was the 6 months prior to filing whatever it is. So the federal government, they don't really interfere as much So the states have created certain aspects of law to unify themselves so that one state can order something and then the other state says, you know what, we're going to respect that decision.
Okay. 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 That's okay.
So for instance, and I mentioned abortion. So let's say, you have a federal law, but then the law is so broad that so long as you're not violating that particular requirement, the state can do whatever the state does without violating that federal law, which is typically very, very broad, because every individual state has its own personality. When I get into Georgia, I can feel I'm in Georgia. Like literally, I cross over like this just feels like Georgia. You get to New York, it's like this just feel like New York. So when you get to a state, it has its own personality and its own set of laws. And the federal government, that law will take precedence. So if you violate a particular federal law, you know, you can lean on that, but just know that most federal laws would prefer you to deal with the state law. If that is clear.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so what you saying is like federal law deals with everything, deals with the United States as a macro level, and the state laws deal with the micro.
Exactly.
It is audience. These your details for the federal law and state law. So that's good stuff too. Okay.
Hmm.
So let me ask you another question. What makes you want to advocate for fathers and fathers' rights, and why do you think that they so biased against men today and in the past?
Yeah. So it's very interesting because I'm real big on family, and children need both their mom and their dad. The federal statute actually says that the child needs the financial support of mom and dad and the physical presence of mom and dad. So when you look at the community as a whole and we want to be a better society, but we're not giving our children the best setup. And if you have an absent parent for whatever the reason, that child is not at their best. Meaning, um, because mom has input, dad has input, so now the child can make a more informed life decision. And what I noticed is many fathers were actually coming to me, and the conversations that we were having, and the conversations we were having was a little bit. I'm not going to say disturbing. I was just really surprised.
It was disturbing. You was right. It was disturbing.
I
Yes,
was just
it was disturbing. Yep, you was right.
I
It
was
was
just
disturbing.
I was a little bit surprised at some parents' ability to withhold that child from their other parent. And I know we're talking about fathers, but I don't want people to think I only represent dads. I represent mom and dads, and my story remains the same. I am about making sure, um, you know, we gotta think about these kids who are going to be adults. And kids don't know the story. They only know the story that mom tells them or dad tells them. And too frequently, we put the children in the middle without even realizing you're playing tug of war with a whole child that's going to have issues, and you're wondering why their grades are down or they're having certain behavioral issues. Not to say that that's the only source, but we want to set them up for success. And I just realized in representing dads and listening to stories, I would ask moms like, why? Because I don't want my child around his girlfriend. I'm like, well, but what else? Because you're gonna move on, and you'll find out that the judges, when they're listening to the cases, they're like, you're not with that person. This is not about the breakup between you and him. This is about raising and co-parenting a child. I would tell dads, I said, how did you end the relationship? Most of the things that happen is because the relationship didn't end with a good closed door to allow for co-parenting to happen. So I said, go back, let's fix that door. Apologize if you need to. If it was a misunderstanding, do that for the sake of the child. but the child needs mom and the child needs dad. And it does go both ways, unfortunately.
That's true. I just had to grab Maxwell just show you that's how serious this situation is. Crazy, but it's one of those things where like you said, that's a good point. Where some situations is happens where the door may have been closed, it may not end on good terms, but I think at the same time, that spirit of bitterness can go both ways. But it's
Exactly.
funny when when the kids live with the guys don't most guys don't even do that. That woman gotta be really physically violent. She out here she gotta be on drugs. She gotta be running the streets. She out here got a crazy boyfriend at the house, or she got crazy relatives. She just really unstable. Only time a lot of men operate like that, it's rare that you see men really do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you talking about all these doors have closed, and like some guys, a lot of guys do. I ain't saying all, but a lot of guys do. You know, close them doors the right way, and she just still got her feelings all tied up into it to where, or he don't want to be with me, he don't want to be with the child, and I'm just gonna withhold. I'm just gonna try to use this child to hurt him to get back at him. Not only are you doing getting back at him, you robbing them a time that can't be refundable. And what do you get? I've seen so many women do this in my lifetime from the 90s until now. I say, what did you gain out of this? You still single? Kids still live, they live with you, or they moved on, they stopped talking to you. They don't have no type of relationship. They get close with they get his side of the story. Because that's another thing when these situations happen, when you say thinking about, especially in our community. Let me say this before I ask you the next question. I say a lot of men be abandoning their children. Most black men don't abandon their children. Most of the mothers ran them off. We don't want to have that type of conversation. You ran them off. You ran them off because you had a bad attitude, you was in your feelings, and you couldn't get your way. Then on top of that, you sat there and told that man, told them children that he did this. Then when they go talk to him, he got all the proof and all this stuff, and he got all the relatives to back this. Now the child don't want to talk to you later in life when you in your 50s and 60s, your child will come talk to you. You wondering why. But look what you did. All that seed that you put in the ground came with a harvest that you couldn't take. So it doesn't make sense for you to sit there and use that child against their fathers because you can't get your way. That doesn't make any sense. Not only are you hurting the children, you hurting the community. And then you ever notice in our community when the children, like with the single mother, they get all the praise when the child come out right, but when the child come out a flop, they blame the dad.
It's a very unfortunate happening or happens is very unfortunate. I just really believe that co-parenting is interesting, is challenging. It can be difficult at times, and there are some cases where people live in the courthouse, unfortunately, where
Live
you know,
there.
yeah, where a stranger, as one judge, he says, I'm a stranger telling you guys what to do with your child because you two just refuse to agree on the child. And this is what I would say to mom and dads, because I represent mom and dads. Um, I would just say, for the sake of the child, learn how to it's not a win or lose. It's like, what is really best? Like, really think about the child. Like, really, really think about the child. It's not about the relationship. It's not about getting back together. It is about, and if you do get back together, whatever, but just don't hurt the child in the midst. Don't put the child in the middle. Don't drag them, into it. I think something you asked me earlier about the passion for the fathers. I just, with fathers, the thing that got to me most is there was a large number, I call it the barbershop talk that you guys do, and there was just a lot of misinformation that was going on, and it was just being repeated. And I'm like, listen, go fight. You're Because they're like, oh, the woman can do whatever she wants. No, she cannot. You're allowing her to do that. You can go fight. So that was a part of my passion that, also indirectly repairs the community, because now it's encouraging fathers to fight for that time, because most guys don't want to fuss with the lady. I don't want to fuss with her. I don't want to argue with her. But then retain counsel. Retain counsel, but don't let your child miss time with you because she's in her emotions, or whatever the scenario happens to be.
That's crazy. You know what, Attorney? That's a good point. That's a strong point. I agree. Um, but two things can be true at the same time. It's the
Very
problem.
true.
The only problem with that is these guys they be mentally exhausted from family law is mentally exhausting. Okay, it make you want to start drinking after you come out of there. That's look, it make you your mental health is in question when you need therapy after you come out of them courtrooms. I don't know how y'all do that. I don't know how y'all keep y'all composure, and it's crazy. And it's like guys look at it from a standpoint. I shouldn't have to fight
Mm,
fight like that. Me as a man, I had that same. I shouldn't have to do all of that. I shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars for basic vegetation. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? I
yeah.
shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars in giving her child support. I shouldn't have to put myself in a fight, compromise my situation and my happiness. That's why some guys, I started seeing that as I got older. I started seeing why guys didn't go back. It's not that saying that they're wrong or right. I'm like in that gray. I don't believe in the gray area. Only when it comes to certain topics, I believe in this gray area because I understand where he's coming from. You don't want to. I shouldn't have to do. I got to live my life too. If I had to leave my child, but I can't stop my life because this woman just will not give up. And a lot of times, she be mad because you moved on with somebody else. Okay, you got married, you had started a family somewhere else, and she mad about that, or she mad about like what you said earlier about the situation about the closed door not being it's not there was no proper closure or whatever. But a man should not have to do that. You know what I'm saying? The man shouldn't have to do that. And here's another point. So if you're struggling that bad, give that man his kids. Give that man his kids, because guess what? You don't see men in there begging them for child support. When the children live with the children live with the dad. They don't really take them women to child support. Some men just do it out of principle, but it's not like the same thing. We're not asking you to do it because we're designed to do that. So if you have that part, these women could be they got so much pride, they could be homeless. They won't get that baby back to the dad. They won't give him back to the dad. They refuse. They refuse to do it because you got so much pride and ego. Instead of doing what's right and what's important, the circumstances telling you to do the right thing. The judge telling you to do the right thing. The attorneys telling you to do the right thing. The Lord telling you to do the right thing. You still won't do it.
Yeah.
You still won't do it. You just want to have your way. And then when the kid turn out something that you don't agree with, now you want the father to step in and interview when the child start making you look bad. Because I
Mm,
seen a couple of clips where this guy is killed. This son turned 16, right? And the woman was filming him. It was a clip. I don't think it was a skit. It was a clip. And what happened was she asked, "Man, can you come pick your son up because he done joined the gang. He got a gun. I found a gun in his room." He's like, what you want me to do about that now? You want me to parent? You done kept me away all these years. My authority doesn't go that far because there's so much gap. That gap is huge. That gap in my fatherhood. I wasn't programming him. I wasn't molding him. I wasn't shaping him. I wasn't grooming him to be a outstanding man. I didn't put my values into him. I ain't put my masculinity into him. I can't. I ain't teach him how to be the man because you put that wedge in between me and him. Now you want me to come be a parent when he about to kill somebody. You want me to step in. That's not how that works. It
yeah.
just doesn't work like that. And it's messed up to see that. I'm like, he's like, man, I don't want my son in that situation, but what you want me to do at this point? This is a situation that you brought on yourself. When I was telling you, I want, let me get them, let me get them. You you was mad about whatever you was mad. I said, put that stuff aside. We got a bigger purpose. We gotta come together for this kid. But you didn't want to do that. Now he in the streets in the gang. The reason the gangs are there is because there's no structure. These guys are looking for structure for other men, and you cannot provide that for him.
Yeah. I would say that life is real. What you're stating is real. Yeah, you actually made me think about Boys in the Hood.
Right.
I was like, go ahead, give me son. Maybe think about Boys in the Hood. Life is real, and children are real, and they will be adults one day. And I definitely believe that the child needs mom and dad,
Do.
and they need mom and dad in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way. If the the Florida statute looks at certain factors when determining, especially if they're married or determining how timeshare should go, they look at different things. If a parent is not in the best interest for a long term on a regular basis, then it is what it is. I just say that be the best you can for that child, and children do mature, and what they needed at 2, at 8, at 12, at 16, it does change. And having a father and a mother definitely it definitely assists in the child's development in becoming the best that they can be.
That's good stuff, and you make a good point. That is 120% right. I fully agree with you. But only problem is a lot of people don't agree with you. They don't agree with me. They don't think the courts don't see it like that because the way they rule, they don't agree. It's the way they rule. They rule. I'm like, the kid could be getting endangered. No, you go back to the mom. I know that kid didn't just die. Oh, the kid did die. Oh, now they looking confused. We told you and gave you all the information. Well, I don't know. I don't know what you want me to do.
Well,
But
let me chime in, because I've had a scenario similar to that, and the courts are not magical. They can't really make a force. They do orders. When there's a dangerous situation, there's the other agencies that come in place. Because I've had that before, and I've had a judge to say, listen, if it's like that, I only have the power and authority to establish, to do this, and to enforce to a certain limit, and these are my remedies if a person doesn't do what they should do according to a sheet of paper. But there's other entities that can interfere and intervene to say, let's do a full investigation. And that's when you get the child protective. And I'm not saying that they do it right, because they be sued and all of that kind of stuff. So but there are other agencies that should be able to step in and to intervene to prevent further unsafe scenarios. So some judges would prefer to have what's called a guardian ad litem, to say, go out and talk to the child, go out and talk to the teachers, go out and talk to the neighbors, bring me back a report, because I only know what the mom and dad are telling me. I only know what the attorneys are saying, and the attorneys are only saying what their clients are telling them. So they get a guardian ad litem that does cause, you mentioned it before, like, why do I have to pay so much money? But a guardian ad litem will go and they will investigate and bring a report back to the court and say, well, this is what's really going on. I even had cases where the judge would talk to the child and really get some inside scoop, limited questions, but they really want to know what's really going on at home. So representation matters. The use of the system does matter. Is it perfect? Nothing is. Everything is the practice of. That's why you want to maximize your experience with your child. You want to make it quality. If a person doesn't have the quantity, you definitely want to make it quality. You said something that was so awesomely stated. You want to, the man should be able to pour into that child. He's like, you want me to discipline him now that he's 16, but I've not had the opportunity to do so over the years. And that's one of the things I try to indirectly assist with. So if a dad can get in earlier, or even with a mom, because there's dads who have time that don't even exercise their time. Scenario where it's like, can you come see your child? So there's definitely scenarios out there. I would just say, parents, think about the child, but there's unselfish people. There's just a lot of unselfish people who become parents, and they think, well, I survived without a dad, you can survive without a dad. And people bring unhealed wounds to relationships, and sometimes kids do suffer in the midst of it. um, but yeah, so great examples, great points. I do believe that, especially as a child gets older, whether it's a son or a daughter, having a mom and a dad is very, very impactful, and they give them different life views to be the best that they can be.
That's good stuff. That's true. And in so many cases in family law where people don't rob, they robbing the child of their parents, and you shouldn't do that, because it shouldn't take this type of extreme for you to establish what two adults should be able to establish. And a lot of times is, when you're doing these type of things, it's a lot more stressful to do it like this than instead of sitting down having a conversation. But some people are not willing to have that conversation, so yeah, it's important to have that conversation. So I want to drop a few fun facts about these statistics in our community specifically. Okay, so you can find this on blackdemographics.com, the Center of Disease Control, the Harvard Review, and you can find this on the health department. All these statistics I'm about to display. So 67% of black dads are involved in their children's lives. What I mean by that is they sit down and help them with their homework. They take them to school. They help them get ready for school. They have a meal with them. They have dinner. About all dads and moms, they're more likely to have a shared meal with their children. Okay, so that means it'll be even higher. You gotta factor in, if the dude is in jail, or he's just absent, or the mother's keeping him away. So it's almost 7 out of 10 dads are involved in their children's lives. Okay, so they did ABC did a study on which household would fare better. So of course the best scenario is the two-parent household. So they're more or less likely to get into trouble, drugs, games, teen pregnancies, all of that. So when they did the analysis on the single mother, the single mother, 80% of the men that's in jail right now came from the single mother. Um, all the teen pregnancies happen under the single mother. Um, what else you have? You have the gangs and the violence. They're more likely to join a gang if their mother is just there. Also, they're more likely to 70%, 80% of the children are more likely to drop out of high school because the father is not there. So, and the courts know this stuff. They know the statistics. They got so many articles. They got the ABC's talked about it. The Harvard Reviews talked about it. It ain't just about black dads, but it's just dads in general. Because what most women don't understand, every parent has their roles. So we're not equal. You are the nurturing parent. The dad is the disciplinary parent. Okay, so the disciplinary parent is the parent that when the dad come in the room, when your mama told you to do something, you don't do it. Dad come in, listen, you need to do this, and this. And the kids want the discipline, they want the structure. But when you remove that covering from the kids are very vulnerable. And a lot of women don't understand that when they do that. So they also did the study with the single dad. Okay, so there was really no difference between the two-parent household and the single dad. The only difference was the mom wasn't there, but the children fared the same, because the dad has the structure, he has the orders, he has all of that. He's that discipline. He gonna tell them kids, no, you can't go out, you can't do this. They're not gonna let them do whatever they want to do. Okay, so these are all recent statistics. You can all find them on those different credible websites. But I just want to explain the statistics to people so they'll know why the statistics are the way they are, and why they fight against dad so much, because they know the children are gonna fare better. Because if you think about it, if it was truly in the best interest of the children, we're going to look at all of these different factors. We're going to look at finance. We're going to look at how you run his household. We're going to do the research on each parent. Like you said, the guardian's life. We go have them interview the child right then and there, take them to court, judge, talk to them. Like they don't do all those processes. The only time they do those processes is on the other side of dependency, or if it's like a life or death situation. That's the only time they'll really do that. But they don't do that on a day-to-day basis. Because if it was truly about the children, you'll see that, if you this okay, there are some bad dads out here too. Okay, they might not fare as good. Their mom might be the better parent, but dad appears to be, statistically across the board across the United States, the dads appear to be the better parent, because you got all the statistics, you got all the stuff to show that they're the better parent, because they fare better with the dads because they're there most of the time. Because mama be tired, mama can't do the things that dad can do. There's certain structures and things that he instills, especially with his sons. There's certain things that you're not able to do as a mom. You know what I'm saying? It's that's where all those doors, you open up Pandora's box when you do this. And you gotta understand where men are coming from. Like, look, you need to go ahead and give me the child. Like, if you complaining about monetary, this is what I don't understand about the child support court, how women going up in there. But it's not saying that like I have an issue with women, but it's just the behaviors behind it. I say, well, if you got all these problems, these financial problems, your kids being disobedient, you can't pay your bills. You talking about your money is behind. You behind on this. You need money for food, groceries. You're like, you a grown adult. You had these bills before the child came. So if you have all these issues, give me the child then. Give that child back to his dad. The dad don't complain. Not gonna complain about none of that. You know what I'm saying? If you complain about money that bad, the child shouldn't even be living with you from the beginning. And that's just my opinion. I could be biased, but that's my opinion. Children shouldn't be living with you if you complaining about money. Every courtroom, you taking this man, every time this man might get an increase, you running them in the courtroom. You running in the courtroom asking he ain't pay. He ain't paying this. And a lot of these chicks don't be using the money for the children, because there'll be situations. I was one of them children go back and ask the mom, can you get a couple dollars from the dad? And the dad be like, I just sent your mom $1,200. Go ask your mom. You ask your mom, she get defensive about it. I was like, I just sent you $1,200. And a lot of times in these cases, when you don't get the court involved, the dudes actually do more for the children. They give more money. But since she wanted to be petty, he said, well, the court said $300. Well, that's all I got to pay. $300. He paid him $300 and go on about his day. I'm not saying it's right, Attorney Rubin. I'm not saying it's right. But I understand why he does it. He said, I'm going to give her $300. That's all I'm obligated to. My kid need new shoes. I was giving you $1,100 a month. You said you wanted to go to court. Now you got less because you was being petty. See, you ain't think about that. You ain't think about them school fees. You ain't think about school clothes, them shoes, his basketball fees. You ain't think about none of that. Her dance recitals, those school trips, graduate. You ain't think about none of that, did you? You so busy trying to get me back at me. You ain't even think about none of that stuff. You ain't even think about that child. You just so bitter. Trying to hurt me. You only hurt the child when you did that.
Now, as an attorney, I have to just say that in a parenting plan, it does is different than the child support guidelines, and
Mm-hmm.
so the child support guidelines does outline the minimum of what the child needs if the child was living in a household based on both parents' income. So that's just to kind of make their living a certain lifestyle. However, in a parenting plan, there are extra things that both parents have to split. So some of the things you said, um, I just want people to, from the legal standpoint, in a parenting plan, you may still be required to pay those extra items from I got to keep my legal hat on, but I will say that the spirit of what you said is so accurate, because I think what I'm hearing is, if we work together without someone forcing me to do what I'm already ready to do and willing to do and able to do, you can get more. But now you're forcing me to do something I'm already willing, ready, and able to do. So I'm only going to give you the minimum, but that minimum does include extracurricular activities, uniforms, blah, blah, blah. But let me also just, so you're right about that. So let me also just come back and just say that there's some scenarios where there are women who will go and for whatever the reason, and then there are some who receive state assistance and they force them to be cooperative with the administrative child support
Mm-hmm.
agency in order to receive medical assistance, cash assistance, food assistance. They have to cooperate with the child support agency to put that father on child support. So I do want to give that caveat, because not all women are intentionally doing it. What I would say, if there's a couple who know they want to co-parent, they don't have to go through the court system. They can get a parenting plan online. They can agree to whatever it's going to be, and just have that there. It's just unfortunate when communication fails and there's other motives, or people may think, oh my gosh, I'm entitled. And there are some, you know, people, moms who may feel like, in our relationship, you took care of me. So now you're going to keep taking care of me and the child. But this is not a dissolution of marriage. This is not an alimony scenario. We're just focused on the child support, what's in the best interest of the child. So I just want to just say that, when I do my seminars, I also tell dads that the child support payment, it does have a purpose, but it does cost. And I think you hit it on the head. There's so many more expenses that comes with rearing children, getting up in the middle of the night, the band-aids, the clothes they're outgrowing, the supplies, the artwork. So there is a lot of things that is outside of that. But if you are on a amicable basis with the parent, then it could maximize the financial portion for the child. One other thing I want to mention, because I don't want to forget, and I know you mentioned that most dads don't want the child support from the mom, and that's true. That's true. That's true. What I tell my clients who are dads is, child support is not yours to waive. So that child is entitled to child support from mom and dad. Most dads, I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm like, put it into an interest bearing savings account. Put it into a trust. Put it in a CD or whatever you want to invest it. But the statute says that the child support belongs to the child and it cannot be waived. So if you're in a situation where you have your child at 100%, make mom accountable. She's still accountable to help financially, even if you don't. It's not, men think, I don't need the mom's money. You don't, but it's not your money. You can't just give away that child's money. Put it into something that's going to grow, and when they get 18, they're going to be happy.
You know
Her.
what's funny about that? That's a strong point. But see, men think logically like that. Men are actually do that. Okay, men want to do that. I think the problem is, the standard is, when we do it, they don't hold the state and the Department of Revenue don't hold the women to that same standard as the men.
Mm.
That's the problem that men have. It's not even a problem. It's not even about us not doing it. It's just the accountability is not the same. And men say, okay, if you're not gonna hold them to the same standard as me, you ain't gonna they ain't gonna suspend their license. They not throwing them in. When the last time you heard a woman going to jail because she ain't paying no child? It's 1 out of 10. And the crazy thing about it is, it's like, and this, I got a theory about this. I could be wrong, but I think I'm on to something. I listened to a lot from the Crimson Cure. She said that it's funny when the children live with the dad, right? When they why they kind of gatekeep a little bit from fathers getting their children. They make us go through a longer process in getting in our children. I think the reason why they do that because the men can pay the child support orders. They'll fund that system. Most of the women are not able to fund the child because think about it. We just uno reverse that, okay, and say all of the children were living with the dads and the moms was just out there doing their own thing. The child support system wouldn't have any revenue. Where would the money come from? Because a lot of these chicks wouldn't be able to pay because they look at it. Most women won't be able to pay. They won't be able to pay those child support. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. 2014, right? Me and my uncle was sitting in court one day, right? I was waiting for my case to come up on the docket or whatever. These white folks now. This different. Now, so dude had custody of all three of his kids. Okay. So he served her. She ain't come to court. She just walks us right on into the defendant spot. Dude say all the kids live with me. I'm like, I'm coming to seek child support. Said she and this was in the paternity court. So this was in the administrative court. So it was in the regular court. So she walked in, said, "Look, I take care of my kids. All my kids live with me. I'm doing everything. I provide all insurance, and she ain't paid $1. She owe $100,000. Ma'am, is that true? Yep. Okay, they reset the docket and reset the case management. That's what they call we reset the case management. She walked out of there. She walked out of there and went on by her day. There's no way a man he wouldn't have walked out of there that day. He'd have been in jail. That woman, she walked in there casually. Yep, I sure do. She went on. She went to the beach and grabbed her a margarita. How? That's situations like I'm joking about it, but that's what men are talking about. Like, wait a minute, if this is Florida law and if you're going to enforce this, it needs to be across the board. The law should not be gender biased. If this is the law, this needs to be enforced. If the children are living with me, therefore it needs to be enforced with her. So vice versa, if the children are living with her, this law needs to be enforced the same way to be unbiased. But Florida law don't do that. We know these judges don't do that. They're not throwing these women in jail for not taking care of their kids. They abandon their kids and it's not, and they just go on about their day. And I'm like, wait a minute, why am I going to fight? And that discourages men for filing child support. Wait a minute, if I file child support and you're not going to hold them accountable, why am I going to file child support? I just raised a child by myself, give me a stepmom, I'm cool. I ain't worried, but I'm not going to ask her for anything. That's the mindset behind men. Men is like, you know what, I'm not going to do it because y'all not going to do nothing about it. You're not going to do that. And we have too many situations and too many scenarios in real time and statistically where you're not doing anything about it. So,
yeah. So let me just say this because the Department of Revenue, right? So remember we talked a couple of moments ago about the Department of Revenue, and I want to help some dads who are out there listening. So Department of Revenue, typically, like I mentioned, if a mom comes to request their assistance for food, cash, medical, then they are there to create, establish, modify, and enforce child support. Well, if a dad doesn't need those services, then he's not going to seek for the Department of Revenue to go to court to enforce anything, because the Department of Revenue can come in and they can say, hey, we're going to do a motion for contempt, or we're going to use one of the methods that we have in our chamber of arsenal to enforce the payment of child support. But if a dad doesn't need Department of Revenue, and here's the misconception, this is why, it's good to just go talk to an attorney, because the father does have ammunition. It's just not the same as the Department of Revenue. So what I would tell a father is that if he does go for child support, there is a thing called motion for contempt. and he can file it just as well as a Department of Revenue can file it. Men may not think that, oh my gosh, you mean I can hold her in contempt? The court doesn't arbitrarily say, I'm doing nothing today, let me just pick a random guy, drag him into my court. No, someone has to bring it to the court's attention through a motion. Typically, if the woman is receiving the assistance of Department of Revenue, Child Support Agency, they're going to be the ones to file that motion of contempt. They're going to be the ones to come and do different levels of enforcement. But if a mom is on child support, that law does apply to her. Now, it's up to the judge if they're going to incarcerate her or not. And I'm not going to say if they're going to give her more chances than they give fathers, which may or may not be accurate. What I will say is that a dad can do a motion to hold her in contempt if there's an order or final judgment for child support, as if he was the Department of Revenue representing the child support agency. So he can do that. Now, do they want to? Maybe not. Maybe they're like, I'm not that petty, but do they have the ability and the right to do it? They do. Now, will a judge suspend the passport and all of that stuff? I would say if a dad is having that issue, do a motion and see. But they do have the power to do a motion to hold that mom in contempt. And if I'm hearing you accurately, you're like, men just ain't gonna put that kind of energy in it.
Yeah, it's true. What you saying that I learned something. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Now, but on the flip side, like you said, like you gotta see just to see. It's like rolling dice. You don't know what you're gonna get. But when they do it, they know what they're gonna get.
Well,
They
let me also
guarantee that
but let
somebody
me let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. So if a parent is behind on child support, I'm gonna do driver's license because I do a lot of these motions to contest driver's license. If you're out there and your license are suspended because of a failure to pay child support, it is a really simple fix. You do a motion to contest where they're suspended or they're threatened to be suspended, and you go to court to do a purge. And the purge is based on what you're able to pay to purge your way out. It is a civil purge. What happens that a lot of people ignore those letters from Department of Revenue, like,
you
well, I'm
feel like
behind,
go ahead
whatever.
garbage. I ain't
Yeah, but it literally says you have 20. It has three different options, and the last option is when people come to see me to say we want to file a motion in civil court, and it's just saying I'm contesting the suspending of my license because maybe I'm making the payments and the clerk of the court doesn't know. One dad I had in Hillsborough County, Hillsborough is like interesting. He kept paying her directly. I'm like, would you stop paying her directly? Because the clerk of the court will automatically say missed payment, court date, missed payment, court date. And so I'm like, you need to pay through the system so they can acknowledge it. So I say that just to say that you go to purge, and it's based on your assets, it's based on your ability to pay, and you can have your license not suspended, or you can have your license reinstated. But if you don't seek legal counsel or legal guidance, then you may be walking around here and get a citation for driving while your license suspended when you could have had this issue rectified years ago. And so will a court suspend license or whatever? Typically, it's the department, it's the child support agency that has that little button that they press. The court's not pressing the button. They don't even know if your license are suspended or not. They're like, hey, is your license good or not? We have to tell them. But it's the child support. They have a connection where they can, okay, suspend it, not suspend it. It's a whole process um, that if you don't know, seek counsel and get your license in order.
Mm. I didn't know that either. See, I learned something new again. All right, audience, you heard that. So if you guys suspended a license, you need to go get a purge. You need to go seek legal representation. I would hire her. I'm just saying. You might want to. She's on the line. You might want to hire her. I think I'm gonna close it out with this last question. Is it hard for you to not laugh when something's really funny in the court? Is it hard for you to just keep your composure. You just something just so funny, and you
Oh,
just gotta be so stoic. You just, I
yeah.
just
If it's funny, I'm gonna laugh. If it's funny, it's gonna be funny to everybody. So yes, I will laugh. I definitely will. Because you talked about stress earlier, and so um, I do laugh. Most times when we're about what we're talking about, I'm focused. I'm concentrating. I'm in listening mode, so I can make sure that we're presenting the best scenario before the court on behalf of the client. But if it's something funny, now if they fall and if it's something I should not be laughing at, I would try not to laugh. So there are scenarios when I'm like, this is hilarious, but I do recognize it's inappropriate for me to laugh, so I'm not going to. But if it's a scenario where it's open game, I'm gonna take it.
there it is. There it is. I was wondering that. I just was trying to be funny there too. But that's interesting. That's interesting. That's some good nuggets. This was a great conversation about fatherhood and family law. This to drop some nuggets that for some people that don't know what's going on in these fields, and hopefully this will inspire some dads to go out there and fight for their kids. It's just sometimes mentally men just be feeling drained. It's like, man, I don't even want to pay all this money. It be costing the men so much more money than the women. To be honest with you, the men are like, you know what? I want my peace. I ain't even gonna do. It's not because they don't even love their children. It's just because sometimes it just isn't worth it. Because at the same time, like, because family law cases can drag out for a while. Sometimes years. Some dudes, some two, some three, some five, some seven, and they, of course, they gotta have a proper legal representation. Then they gotta pay this child support order, and then of course, if they fight for custody or whatever type of custody fight, they gotta still fund the attorney. It was like, this is a lot. This is a lot. So it can be mentally taxing. I would say to the men, um, fight as much as you can, do what you can, and um, seek out resources in your community. Speak up. Have a voice. Speak up to your family. Speak up to the people. Also seek legal advice. To really better your situation. It might be things that you might be overlooking. It might be situations you might not even know about. You might want to just go out here and talk to somebody because there's maybe components that you might not be missing, you might be missing, because it takes in the legal field is just detail, little details too, that can overturn and change a situation. So you just never know. So definitely seek legal representation. Pay them $50 to $100, however the consultation fee is. Pay it, get the knowledge, try to use that hour as much as you can. Then the best scenario, if you do have a child support order, make sure that you make sure you do hire legal representation before you go in both courts, so you'll have a decent advantage when you go in there. So yeah, yeah,
Agreed.
great. So we cooking. So yeah, do you have any closing remarks before I make mine?
Thank you for having me. And I just hope that people go back, replay, share the message. This is information for moms and dads, and definitely dads. Don't hesitate to seek legal guidance. And like he said, stand up and fight. Your kids, they become adults, and how will they remember you? Will they say my daddy really fought for me, or he's like, nah, mom got her way? So it's in your hands. And
Yes,
thank you again for having me.
oh, of course. No, this is what we are. I appreciate you, Tom. I appreciate you taking my call with my crazy self. I appreciate you responding, to the request. And appreciate you telling me time is very valuable on this platform. And I will say in closing remarks, always be encouraged, to fight for your children. Always be encouraged to understand your role as a father. It was a scripture in the Bible said the glory of the children belong to their fathers. So the nation would be chaotic until you return into their fathers. So I looked up the term glory because I'm like wondering why glory. Well, we give glory to God. We give glory to the Almighty. So glory means weight. So the weight goes to the men. Okay, so that's why they say the glory of the children go back to their father. That's why God says, "Give me all the glory, give me everything," because the weight of the world belongs to me, not you. You can't carry the weight. Same thing with the children. The weight belongs to the father. The father belongs to the weight because the stress, the anxiety, all that belongs to us. We're designed to carry that. So it's something that you should think about. Not saying that moms do a bad job, but I'm just saying that the weight component. But yeah, so until next week, Thursday night on Pride Level 7:30, gonna have another amazing guest on here. So make sure you tune in. We over and out. Rubin's Law. Make sure you go look. How do they find you if they need legal representation? I'm sorry. How do they find you? Give all your contact information in there.
The easiest way is to call us 727-512-8261. Again, 727-512-8261. You can also go to our website and subscribe. We do monthly newsletters, and the website is www.rubinslaw.com, www.rubins, like Sam, law.com. Go to the website and subscribe to our monthly newsletter, or follow us on Facebook, Rubin's Law.
There you go. If you need legal representation, she gonna get you right. She gonna close some cases out for you. She gonna get it done. All right. She's prompt. She's on time. She gonna help you. She gonna give you the raw truth. She gonna look. She gonna do what's in the best interest of your situation and your children and your real estate and everything. Make sure you go ahead and use her. She got you, okay? She's responsive. She ain't going off the map. She ain't one of them attorneys that you can't reach out to and ask questions. She not going to take advantage of you anyway. She going to make sure that you get the best possible experience, okay? Make sure you hire her. Don't hire nobody. Hire her. Don't hire nobody else, okay? So until next week, everybody be blessed, stay safe. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.